The modern environment is quite literally rewiring the way the brain functions. This digitally induced inattention is real and absolutely deserves attention, but it is not the same thing as a neurodevelopmental disorder with a neurological origin. Conflating the two is dangerous both for those who self diagnose without having ADHD and for those who genuinely have it but assume it's just the phone. The trivialization of this condition begins precisely here, in this grey area between habit and disorder. The key distinction between ordinary distraction and ADHD comes down to three words: persistence, childhood, and impairment. ADHD begins before the age of 12. It is present across multiple contexts: school, home, work, relationships, and it causes a genuine, measurable impact on a person's life. It isn't something that only surfaces when the subject matter is dull or the day has been particularly grueling. Everyone gets distracted, procrastinates, or forgets something important from time to time. That's simply part of being human. But with ADHD, this pattern is constant. It is independent of the environment, and it generates serious consequences that accumulate over years. Knowing this distinction is what separates an honest self assessment from a diagnosis cobbled together after watching a 2-minute video. An ADHD diagnosis is not reached through a single test or a quick appointment. It involves detailed interviews, a thorough review of childhood history, accounts from people close to the individual, and very specific clinical criteria. Professionals such as psychiatrists and neuropsychologists use validated instruments to map behavioral patterns over time. The process is rigorous precisely because the consequences of getting the diagnosis wrong are serious. There is no blood test or brain scan that can confirm ADHD. What does exist is a deep and experienced clinical assessment. This is why no online questionnaire, YouTube video, or Instagram post can ever replace that process. The correct diagnosis is what opens the door to the right treatment, and without it, a person can spend years addressing entirely the wrong problem. The most effective treatment for ADHD combines two approaches: cognitive behavioral therapy and, in more severe cases, medication. Therapy helps the individual develop practical strategies for organization, impulse control, and time management skills that a brain with ADHD needs to learn in a structured, deliberate way. Seeking help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. In cases where medication is recommended, it works directly on the dopamine and noradrenaline imbalance, helping the brain to function in a more regulated way. But medication without therapy is like wearing glasses without ever learning to truly make sense of the world around you. It resolves part of the problem, but not the whole of it. A complete course of treatment transforms not only performance, but a person's entire relationship with themselves. Seeking information about ADHD is positive, necessary, and even courageous, but self diagnosing based on videos and social media posts can lead to conclusions that are entirely wrong. The symptoms of this condition closely resemble dozens of other issues, including anxiety, depression, and even sleep deprivation. Without a professional assessment, a person risks spending years treating the wrong problem altogether. Digital content has democratized access to information, but it has also created a generation that confuses emotional identification with clinical diagnosis. Feeling as though a video describes you perfectly is the beginning of a journey, not the end of one. The real next step is to seek out a professional, because only they have the tools to distinguish genuine ADHD from the sheer weight of modern life pressing down on an otherwise healthy brain. Now that you understand what ADHD truly is, it's worth asking yourself, how many times have you judged someone or yourself without having this information? How many people around you might be suffering with a real condition while the world dismisses it as an exaggeration or an excuse? The knowledge you've gained today has the power to change not only your own life, but the way you connect with the people around you. ADHD is not an internet identity. It is not a trend. It is not self-indulgence. It is neurology. It is genuine suffering. And it has a solution. If something in this video has struck a chord with you, don't stop here. Seek out a professional. Deepen your understanding. And give yourself the chance to truly understand what is going on. The right information at the right moment can be the turning point you've been waiting for. If this video has resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because every week there's new content that could genuinely transform the way you understand your own mind. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, because sometimes the right piece of information arrives at exactly the moment a person needs it most. See you in the next one. Have you ever stopped to consider that perhaps the problem isn't a lack of focus, but rather that nobody has ever properly explained what's actually going on in your brain? Every single day, millions of people identify with ADHD symptoms on social media, self-diagnose, and carry on with their lives without truly understanding anything. Meanwhile, those who genuinely have the condition continue suffering in silence, undiagnosed, untreated, and without answers. In this video, you're going to discover what ADHD really is, how it works in the brain, and why the trivialization of this condition is doing far more harm than good. It doesn't matter whether you suspect you might have it, whether you know someone who does, or whether you simply want to understand the subject properly. What you're about to see will change the way you look at this topic entirely. Stay until the end, because the last part is the most important. Every week, someone posts on social media, "I forgot where I put my phone. I think I've got ADHD." And then come the likes, the comments, the sense that absolutely everyone has this condition. The trouble is, this trivialization turns a serious diagnosis into a meme, and that has very real consequences for those who are genuinely suffering. When any passing distraction becomes synonymous with ADHD, those who actually have the condition stop being taken seriously, not by their families, and not even by themselves. Inattention has become a sort of quirky personality trait, or when in reality it's a symptom that can destroy careers and relationships. Before putting that label on yourself or someone else, it's worth understanding what this condition truly is. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, meaning it is present from birth, it exists within the very structure of the brain, and it is simply not just a scatterbrained way of being. It has a proven neurological basis, with real differences in the way the brain develops and functions. Calling it a lack of willpower is like calling short-sightedness laziness of the eyes. Contrary to what many people believe, an ADHD diagnosis isn't about being restless or occasionally misplacing your keys. It is a persistent pattern of inattention and/or hyperactivity that genuinely compromises a person's life across multiple areas. And understanding this neurological origin changes everything, because it changes the way we treat it, the way we relate to it, and the way we see ourselves. Think about Muhammad. He can barely sit still. He answers before a question has even finished, and he acts on impulse as though the brakes in his brain have completely given out. Then there's Olivia. She seems calm on the outside, but inside she's lost in a fog. She forgets tasks, loses her train of thought, and drifts away into her own mind. These are two faces of the same condition, and one is far less obvious than the other. The more hyperactive and impulsive profile, like Muhammad's, tends to draw attention and is generally diagnosed earlier in life. Olivia's quiet inattentiveness, on the other hand, is often mistaken for laziness, shyness, or a lack of effort, particularly in girls. Understanding these two profiles is essential for recognizing that ADHD doesn't have just one face, and that many people go years without a diagnosis precisely because of this. The brain of someone with ADHD produces lower levels of dopamine and noradrenaline, the neurotransmitters responsible for focus, motivation, and impulse control. On top of that, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, organizing, and making decisions, operates more slowly. It's a bit like trying to drive a powerful car with a faulty control panel. This imbalance explains why someone with ADHD can spend hours completely absorbed in a video game or a TV series, yet seize up entirely. When faced with an important task, the brain is simply seeking out stimuli that release dopamine quickly. It isn't a choice, it isn't an excuse, it's neurology. And understanding this mechanism is the first step towards stopping the self blame and starting to seek the right kind of support. When ADHD goes unidentified and untreated, the consequences reach far beyond a chaotic diary or an untidy bedroom. Studies show significantly higher rates of school dropout, unemployment, road accidents, and divorce among people with the condition who have never been diagnosed. Left unaddressed, it is a condition that quietly exacts a very heavy toll over the course of a lifetime. Unchecked impulsivity opens the door to substance misuse, and years of accumulated frustration become fertile ground for depression and anxiety. It is no coincidence that many adults only discover they have ADHD after spending years feeling broken without ever understanding why. All of these consequences have a name, or they have an explanation, and more importantly, they have a treatment. Excessive use of mobile phones and social media is creating something deeply worrying people who develop symptoms that closely resemble ADHD without actually having the condition. A brain conditioned to receive a hit of dopamine with every scroll gradually loses its capacity to sustain attention on tasks that are lengthy or lack immediate stimulation.